Well, good evening, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are and what time of day it is for you. We appreciate the fact that you have given us a little bit of your time. We know that time is our one commodity that we only have a certain amount of, and so we appreciate and are thankful that you have given us this time this evening, this afternoon, this morning, whatever it is, to learn a little bit about the CMA exam, the US CMA exam. We'll go ahead and get started here in just a moment, but I know that there's a lot of people joining and it takes a second for everybody to get turned on. What we're going to be doing tonight is talking about the CMA exam, what it is, why you might be doing it, who it is that the CMA exam works well for, and then also how it is that you can actually pass the exam, because it's one thing to study for it, but we obviously want you to pass the exam. And so we will be talking about study materials and study process and kind of a realistic time frame for you for preparing for and passing the CMA exams. There is the ability for you to ask a question. There's a Q&A button as part of the Zoom meeting. If you have any questions, you can type them into the Q&A. We have some people online who may be answering some of those questions as we go through. Some of the times the questions you ask are things that we're going to talk about a little bit later in the session, and so we'll answer those questions live as we're able to. And at the end, if we have time, we'll take some questions and answers and hopefully get all of your questions addressed here today. If at the end we haven't gotten all of the questions, or there's something that you think of a little bit after this is over, please send us an email at support@Hock International, and we'll be happy to answer whatever questions you have that we weren't able to answer today. And so we'll go ahead and get started. We do have a slideshow here, and we'll kind of talk and give you the agenda of what we're going to talk about, and then we'll go through it. All right. Our ideal outcome is that at the end of this session, you are done and you are happy that you know more than you knew at the beginning. You feel more comfortable about CMA, making a decision about CMA. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about what is the CMA certification and who it's for, exam eligibility requirements, what you have to do to be eligible, the overview of the content and the structure, what are the requirements after you've earned CMA in order to maintain that certification. As I said, we'll talk about the study timeline and some strategies to go ahead and prepare successfully for the exam. We'll talk a little bit about our materials and what we have available to support you in your studies. And then we'll have a Q&A at the end. And as I said, there is the ability to put a Q&A into Zoom, and we'll deal with those as we're able to throughout. By way of introduction, if you don't know me, my name is Brian Hock. I am the founder and the CEO of Hock International. I will be doing some of the presenting tonight, and Ronak Baheti is with me as well. Ronak is our business relationship director in India, and he is also a CMA, which is why he is here with us today. I'm a CMA, and Ronak is a CMA. And so what we're trying to bring is the practical element of CMA. Yes, there is an academic element of passing the exam, but ultimately what we're talking about is your career. And so Ronak will share some of his insights as to how it is that CMA actually works in the career world. It's not just an academic thing, but how it is that CMA is going to be supportive in your career. Just kind of in reference to the experience that we bring, I taught my first CMA class at the end of September in the year 2000. And so we're just a couple of months short of 25 years ago when I taught the first CMA class. And we've gone through a lot of exam changes, a lot of different changes in the syllabus as we've gone through all of this, but CMA continues to be one of my personal favorite professional certification exams. And that's something that we'll talk about today as to why it is that CMA is so valuable and adds so much to you and your career. And so welcome, Ronak. We're looking forward to having this event with you and all of the people that are attending. We'll go ahead and we'll start by talking about what is the CMA certificate. What are we talking about? Well, CMA is Certified Management Accountant. Okay, that's what it is. There's CMA India, there's CMA US. This is the one that's based in the US. It's a global certification that's been offered since 1972. It's offered by the Institute of Management Accountants that's based in the United States. And even though the name accountant is in it, Certified Management Accountant, it isn't only about accounting. It covers finance. It covers a little bit about strategy. And obviously, CSCA exam builds even in more depth on strategy that's started in CMA. But what CMA is doing is it's covering the topics, it's covering those areas that companies make decisions in. In order to make a decision, you need to have information. You need to know what information you need. You need to know how to prepare that information. You need to know what information is missing. And so what CMAs are able to do is to guide and support those decisions that companies make. Now, in your earlier stages in your career, you may be providing that information for others to make the decisions. But as you grow and develop in your career and move up the organizational hierarchy, you will start being the person who's making the decisions yourself. And other people will be preparing that information for you, and you will be using that information to make the decisions. But it's this process of helping the company make the best decisions. Sometimes we don't have all of the information we need. We need to figure out how to get that information. Sometimes, and this is becoming more and more of an issue these days, we almost have too much information. There's a massive amount of information that's available to us. And what we need to do is to sort through that to identify what information is useful, what information is necessary as part of this decision we're making, and what information is not. What is that information that we're able to ignore and is just kind of distracting, or perhaps even leading us to make a decision that's not the right decision. Some of the roles that CMAs find themselves in: financial analyst, corporate controller, CFO, management accountant, any consultant. I personally think that somebody who's in a consulting business, CMA is ideal, because fundamentally what it is that CMA is covering is how a business should operate. And so if you're a consultant, what you're doing is you're helping businesses improve their operations, and knowing what they could be doing or should be doing is a first step in that. So that's kind of the background of what CMA is. Who is it for? It's for accounting, finance professionals looking to grow their career. This isn't something that's limited to only a certain stage in your career. Whatever stage you are in your career, the skills you learn, the knowledge and the tools that you learn in CMA are going to be helpful. They're going to help you do your job better. They're going to help prepare you for the next step in the organization. It's kind of interesting. Obviously, we all want to get promoted. That's what it is that we are trying to do. And part of that is, if we want to get promoted, there's a couple of things that we need to do. We need to make certain that we have the skills necessary to do that next job. If we're going to get promoted, what is that next job that we need to be doing? We need to have the skills for that. And also, we need to make certain that there's a person to do our job after we get promoted. And so part of what we need to do in that promotion is not only prepare ourselves for the next step, but we need to prepare somebody below us to come up and fill our role. If we are the only person who can do our job, it's difficult to be promoted. And so CMA is helping us be prepared for that next role. And it may also be helping the person who's going to take our role prepare for our role as well. Ultimately, what CMA is doing, what it is that we're most interested in is our career and the money. And so we see here some different statistics. We have greater confidence, we accelerate our advancement, and we earn more money. I know that if we were in a room and we were talking about this, I would, ask people why you're considering studying a certification. Why is it that you're interested in CMA? Why is it that you're interested in a professional certification? And if we opened this up and we had people answer this question, people would talk about more knowledge and skills and advancement and opportunity and professional development and things like that. And eventually somebody would say, I want to make more money. And that's a tremendous motivation for us. I know that if you have a job and you love your job, that's great. That's absolutely wonderful that you love your job. But no matter how much you love your job, if they stopped paying you, you wouldn't continue for very long. You wouldn't keep showing up for work. And so money, our compensation, that is a big part of our motivation. And so having a certification, having CMA is going to help you do that. One of the questions that we get a lot now in terms of our career and being ready for that career and being able to get promoted in that career is how is the accounting profession, how is the finance profession going to be in the future? And this question comes down to what is AI going to do? Is AI going to eliminate all of the accounting and finance jobs in the future? And obviously, we don't know the absolute definitive answer of what's going to be happening 15 or 20 years in the future. But the short answer to that question is no. AI is not going to eliminate the accounting and finance functions. It will change it, but it's not going to eliminate it. And what CMA helps you do is it helps you be ready for that new environment where AI is working and AI is a part of what it is that we're doing in our jobs. I want to give just a brief kind of comparison to this, draw a parallel to something that happened earlier in my career. When I graduated from university, I put on my resume, on my CV, that I knew how to use a spreadsheet and a word processor. Okay, it wasn't Excel and it wasn't Word at that time, but I was very early in people that were learning to use those skills. And so when I graduated 30 years ago, well, more than 30 years ago now, but that's a different question. When I graduated, that was a skill. That was a skill that set me apart. I was able to understand and work a little bit in a spreadsheet and a word processor. If you go now and interview for a job and you don't know how to use Excel, you don't know how to use Word, you're not going to get hired. Those tools became a foundation of what it is we use in our profession. And when spreadsheets came out, there was talk that this was the end of accounting. Because why would we need all of these accountants if the spreadsheet did all of that for you? And think about all the tools that exist now in Excel, all the things you can do now in Excel. And just think how many people that took to do all of that prior to Excel and prior to those tools that are available there. Well, the profession adapted and it uses those tools that are available to do more, to do better things, to be more predictive, to try to look better into the future, make our forecasts more accurate. And so right now, if you're going out and you're looking for a job and you have some specific experience with AI or you've used tools or you've developed tools, you're unique. Okay, maybe not as unique as you were a year ago, but this is still kind of that forefront. But if we go ahead 5 years, 10 years in the future, if you don't know how to use the tools that are being created, you're not going to get a job. And so I've said this before, I'm not the one who created this, but I believe it's still completely accurate. You are not going to lose your job to AI, but you may lose your job to somebody who knows how to use AI better than you do. And so what CMA helps you do is know the decisions that need to be made, the information you need to make those decisions, and the things that you need to consider when you're making those decisions. AI, whatever form it takes, whatever name it takes in the company you're working for, that's a tool. It helps you take all of that data that's being collected now and sort it. It helps you take all of that data and put it in a more usable form for you. But ultimately, there's a decision that needs to be made, and AI is not going to be making those decisions. AI is a support tool. It's not the decision-making tool. And so if you're worried about AI and what it is that it's how it's going to impact you in the future, the best thing you can do is learn how to use it. Learn your basic programming techniques. It's not only about prompting, it's being able to use it to do more than just that. Get exposed to it, read about it, stay current with it. But if you're able to stay current with the tools that you are going to need to use in your job, what you learn in CMA is going to allow you to utilize those tools and keep your job. So yes, AI will impact the work that we do. And AI will eliminate some entry or data entry types of jobs, but that's not the job you're interested in if you're here today. If you're looking at CMA, you're looking at those jobs where you're making decisions for the company. where you're part of that decision-making process. You will continue to have a job, but more and more, every year that passes, you will have more and more tools that you need to know how to use in order to be able to do that job very well. So kind of a brief discussion there, but you need to know how to use the tools, and your job will still be there if you know how to use those tools. So let's take kind of a step back, not quite as large of a picture there, but just understanding what the eligibility requirements are. In order to do CMA, you need to have a bachelor's degree and 2 years of experience. And then after you pass the exams and you have your active IMA membership, that's what's going to continue. And you're going to continue to have continuing education requirements as well that you're going to meet in an annual basis going forward. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to talk in a little more detail about the exam, and I'm going to turn the microphone over to Hock to do that, to talk about what the structure is and the syllabus and how it is that that syllabus relates to the work that we're doing today. And so, Hock, I give you the microphone.
Thank you so much, Brian. Good evening, good morning to all our participants. Thank you for taking the time out. So I would be speaking to you about how the overall exam structure is there. So if you see, CMA is divided into two parts, part 1 and part 2. Each part has 100 MCQs in the examination. So the examination has about 100 questions, okay? 4 hours it would be conducted for the overall examination, and it is conducted by Prometric testing centers. These are approved centers by IMA, and they are there globally. So what you need to do is you need to book your slot in these Prometric centers and then go to that particular place at the allotted slot, go and write the exam. The exam is of 4 hours. So the first 3 hours that you get 100 MCQs. Now, the interesting part in this is that because these 100 MCQs are there and there's the timer out there, the moment the timer starts, the question starts, you need to answer 50% of those 100 MCQs correctly in order to be eligible to move to the essay window. There have been times where students have not been able to answer it correctly and they get a thank you right after that. They do not proceed to the essay window. However, if you do get the 50% correct, the essay window opens up. Now, in the essays, there are 2 essays that comes up. One is a case study based question, or both of them could be case study. One is a case study based question, and then subsequently they ask about 6 to 7 questions related to that case study, and that you have to answer. The advantage is that all these are computer-based exams, okay? However, you would be getting a pen and paper handy from the Prometric to do your calculation. But these examinations prepare you for your job, because when you go to your workplace, you would not be writing, right? You will be working on the computer. That is how the exam prepares you from the very beginning to make you job ready. That's the business demand that you need to have, where you are skilled with typing and using the computer. So the exams are conducted in the similar fashion. So you need to type in your answers for those essays. And after the essays is completed, once you hit enter, it would take about 6 to 8 weeks for your results to come. The advantage, what I personally as a student felt, when I'll share a bit more about my journey, the advantage that I had was, I felt that these exams are conducted throughout the year. So starting from Jan-Feb, these two months, the exams are conducted, then 2 months of gap, and then subsequently the other 2 months follows up. So 6 sessions is when you can write these exams. The advantage is that you as a student gets to decide when do you want to write the exam. Say, for example, I am comfortable, I have some engagement in January, but February, I have some plans where I can, plan my examination. So I pick a particular date. There are 2 slots that I need to select from. There's a morning slot and the afternoon slot. So for me, I personally chose the afternoon slot because I thought that in the morning, probably I'll do a revision of the, the formulas, the important questions that I had noted down, and then I'll be well prepared before I go for my exam. So it depends. I took the second slot. and I went and I wrote my examination. So that flexibility is given to you from IMA, and these 6 months that you get, you can book the sessions, but you have to be careful that the slot that you want to book, the moment they open up, there are a lot of students who actually want to book that particular slot. And ideally, the the slots which is towards the end of the month when the session gets over, that gets filled up first. So if you are planning to write the examination and you've decided, you should always aim at booking your slot beforehand so that you get the desired slot. All right. So as we move to the next slide, I would be walking you through the syllabus. Now, one of the questions that I saw somebody had asked is that I want to change my profession. So I would cite my example here before I come down to what it covers and how it helps you. So before I did my CMA, I had 12 years of work experience in business development, right? And I was looking for a course which is globally recognized and where it would help me grow in my career. So I zeroed down on US CMA, and somebody said that it's just 2 papers. You can easily do it. I got sold into that. But once I started, I was proven wrong. Why? Because if you see in both the parts, there are 6 core competencies in each part, which is equivalent to one particular paper. Now, if you have to write one paper at a time before the examination, your mind is attuned, right? You know that if it's, for example, a performance management paper, so you know all the formulas, everything that you have prepared, your mind is attuned to everything related to that performance management paper, right? And then you go and write the examination. The challenging part here is that when you write part 1 or part 2, these 6 core competencies, they ask you questions randomly. So the 100 questions that I was referring to before in the examination, if I'm writing part 1, the 100 questions can come from any of the topics. It could be a financial reporting question. It could be a budgeting, forecasting question, internal control question, technology and analytics. So they don't come announce that, okay, I'm coming from this particular topic. Now, I would try to relate it back to something why it is very business relevant in today's scenario. Say, for example, a CFO, he goes to the office, right? So the problem that comes to him, it is not announced problem that, okay, today I have an internal control problem. So I'll be attuned to that particular thought process that today I'll be getting an internal control problem. It's not like that in real scenario, right? The moment the CFO enters, he may get a problem with internal control. It could be an ethical problem. It could be something related to the budgeting or the forecasting. So his mind is always attuned, right? One after the other, he'll be bombarded with these questions. Now, if you look at the qualification, how they have prepared, it prepares you in the similar manner. It prepares you for the future. So as a CFO or as a finance professional, when you go to your office, you are already attuned your 2 years of, the effort that you put in preparing for this qualification. It prepares you for this particular role. So when I did my US CMA after 12 years, I was looking for a finance job, right? And it was very difficult because I already had certain years of experience and I was at a certain salary range. So I couldn't start as a fresher. But because I had done US CMA, I got the opportunity to work in entity data as an associate director in FP&A directly, financial planning and analysis. This is a profile that a lot of people, they start with accounts payable, accounts receivable, all these profiles, and then eventually after certain years, they grow into this particular role. I got the opportunity as the first job in finance because of the CMA qualification. This allowed the employer to have that trust that, okay, this person has gone through this professional exam. He has the knowledge. So let's give it a shot. So I was very confident. And from the very first day, I just happened to know the tools that they have. And once I got to know the tools, I did not have any problem because the qualification had prepared me really well. And I was ready to, start functioning. And I was offered to handle 2 of the global business businesses of entity data. I was the finance controller for 2 of the businesses. So I started preparing the annual operating plans for both the businesses. Then month on month, the forecast, I was doing the variance analysis and taking out the insights. This qualification is futuristic. And why do I say futuristic? If I bring it back to my practical role at entity, so all of you must have heard of month ends, right? Finance professionals, they talk about today is my month end, I'm very busy, right? So what do? They put in all those invoices and all the accounts receivable, payables before the 31st in the system, in the SAP system or Oracle, whichever they're using. And that is it. My job role used to start after that was done. So I used to pull out the data from the system and used to analyze and see, okay, this was the forecast that I did for the month of March or for July. Now, these are the actuals. So I had to manage and see whether if we are doing better or worse. If it's better, why it is better? Because say, for example, a certain depreciation which was accounted for was supposed to hit in that particular month. It did not hit. So I see some goodness or some positivity in my analysis. But then this would come next month. So it would impact next month. So I had to make the note of that variance analysis, all these analysis that I used to do, and then present it to my CFO. The advantage what a management accountant gets is you work very closely. So I was working very closely with the CFO. You are if you say you are part of that blue-eyed team of the management, the senior folks, because my interaction was very closely with the CFO and all the senior leaders. As and when you do these analysis, right, the inputs that you share with the senior leaders, these analyses help the senior leaders to take business decisions where the company is heading. So in the previous slide, when Brian was mentioning that, a CMA qualified professional earns 21% more than a non-CMA, this is one of the reasons why, because these are futuristic decisions that you are supporting the CFO with all the data and all the evidence that is required. So your role would always be relevant. Somebody was asking about the AI implementation, and rightly Brian said, AI would be a tool. It would give you put in the data, it would give you an analysis that, okay, these are the recommendations. But a management accountant intervention would always be required, because you would be able to assess whether the data that has come out, the suggestions that has come out from that, whether it makes sense or not. That AI would not be able to tell you. They would give you that data. So your role would always be very crucial in any organization that you work, because you would be seen as a strategic thinker. All your decisions or the inputs that you give to the business, these are all strategic in nature. So if you want to be a strategic leader, get into that strategic mode, this is the qualification that you should aim for. So if you look at the course curriculum, it would talk about your budgeting, forecasting, performance management, cost management, internal controls. It also talks about technology and analytics. Then in part B, you see corporate finance, business decisions, whether you have 4 options, right, for a business to invest. Which one is the most suitable option for the business to invest? You would be doing those analysis and you will be giving these insights to the leadership. Then you have capital investment decisions. Professional ethics is something that is very core to a finance professional. So that is also covered. So if you see, these entire tool or entire competencies that you develop will make you job ready. And tomorrow when you go to the job market, the employer would know what skill sets you bring. This is more grueling. Even if there are 2 papers, this is more grueling because you don't know what is going to come in the examination, right? So your mind is attuned in that fashion and you are prepared to start delivering from day one. So as we move to the next slide, I would talk about the exam grading and results. So what IMA does is they have a scale score between 0 to 500. There's a certain weightage given to the 100 questions. where I mentioned that 50% is the passing question that you need to get in order to be eligible to move to the essay window, right? However, 360 is not as you cannot consider as a percentage. There are weightages that they give to each section. And say, for example, 100 random questions are coming. I go and get different set of questions. It could be easy. You go and write the examination, you get a different set of questions, which could be considered little difficult. So how would that be fair for a student? So IMA has an interesting algorithm that they run. So after the session gets over, 2 months, that gap that they have, the algorithm is run. So say, for example, they check that these many questions were easily answered by so many people, right? So if I have answered well, my weightage would come down. And somebody who had got difficult questions, they'll see that how many questions were answered correctly by this set of people who got this question. And if they see that it's less, their weightage would go up. So that is how they bring everybody. The algorithm is beautifully done, and they bring everybody at par so that people can, it's a fair decision. And that's when the results are announced. So after the session is done, within 6 to 8 weeks, you would be getting your result. You need to score 360 out of the overall 500, and that would be the pass percentage. We can move to the next slide. So now I'll hand it back over to Brian. And Brian, over to you, please.
Thank you, Ronak. What we're going to talk about now is kind of the study time and how long it takes and the costs that are involved in doing all of this. This is, I kind of connected to some of the questions that people have been asking. How long it takes to study is really up to you. It depends on what your background is, what your experience is, and how much time you study in a week. Most candidates are taking 4 to 6 months per part. Some take 9 months, some take 12 months. Ultimately, you need to be budgeting about 200 hours of studying per part. 200 hours for part 1, 200 hours for part 2. And people ask, can I study in 2 months? Well, if you study 100 hours a month, then you can study your 200 hours in 2 months. And so how long it takes is a little bit up to you in terms of how much time you're able to put into your studying on a weekly basis. I don't like to think of studying as a daily event and how much you're going to study per day, because I don't recommend studying every day, and it will fluctuate. But if we think about how much time we're going to spend on average in a week, that's a much better measure of, kind of way to look at this. And so if you're able to study 20 hours a week, well, in 10 weeks, you'll have 200 hours. If you study 10 hours a week, it'll take 20 weeks to get to that. And we know that some weeks you won't study at all. You're on vacation, there's family events, whatever the case is. But that's kind of what it is that you need to have in mind, is it's going to be about 200 hours. For some of you, it will be a little bit more. For some of you, it will be a little bit less. But if you have that as your starting point. And what our system does, we have a system that's called PassMap. And I won't demonstrate it here. We have videos online that show that. But you go into PassMap and you put in the day you plan to take your exam. Okay, whatever day it is you plan to take your exam. And then it takes all the studying you have to do, how many hours each section is, each study unit is, and it tells you when you need to be starting each study unit in order to finish and be ready to take your exam when you want to take your exam. And part of that calculation is it tells you how many hours a week you need to study. And so you can go in and you can play around with that. If you go in and you put in your exam date and it tells you you need to study 37 hours a week, and you don't have 37 hours a week that you can study, you know that you're not going to be ready at that time. You need to push your exam date out a little bit further to give you the time that you need to study. You need to keep in mind that the study process is personal. If you are studying with other people, that's great. There's tremendous value in studying in a group and studying with other people, but each person has a different section that they like or don't like, or that's easy or not easy to them. And so if you're studying with somebody or talking to somebody and they go through section A very quickly, and you're not going through section A very quickly, well, that's okay. That may be what their background is in. That may be what their experience is in. And so your Section A is a little bit slower, but you might go through Section C more quickly based on your background and your experience. And so don't let this become something where you compare your study process to somebody else's. You're both going to be different. Okay, you're each going to have your own path, your own time frame. The cost of CMA, there's essentially two costs that are connected to this. One is registering for the exam, and the other is studying. And so when we talk about the exam registration, it is there's a range here, $1,014 to $1,585. That depends on whether you're registering as a university student or whether or not you're registering as a professional. And these fees change from time to time. And so that is what the fees are today. If the IMA raises the fees at some point in the future, then this will be a little bit higher than that, depending on what it is that they raise the prices to. And so it's kind of a target. I mean, you can't keep this number for a long period of time and have to recheck it to make certain it's still the same. But those are the costs of registering as a CMA candidate, getting your IMA membership, and then registering for the exam itself. This total fees here, this is assuming you pass each exam the first time. If you don't pass an exam and you have to re-register for it, there's an additional fee to retake that exam. The other part of the costs of becoming a CMA are your study materials. And that's what we're able to help with. We now provide our materials to individuals on a subscription basis. And what this means is you only pay for the materials for as long as you need them. If you sit down and you say, wow, I have a great deal of experience, I've already passed some other professional certification exams, I think I can pass both parts in 4 months. Great. That's great for you. You have great experience. And so you only need to subscribe for 4 months, in which case your costs for materials are going to be much lower than somebody who's studying for a year. So we have different subscriptions. We have a $59 a month, and then that charges every month. If you subscribe for a 6-month period, it's $249 for a 6-month period, and then $249 for the next 6 if you need it. Or you can switch from a 6-month to a 1 month, depending on how much time you need the materials for. We also have a 2-year period. It's a $999 for 2 years. That 2 years also includes a pass guarantee. We have information about that on our website. If you're interested in that option, all of this information and the prices is on our website and the subscription. If you're in India, the prices are in rupees. If you're in Canada, the prices are in Canadian dollars. And there's a couple of other countries where the prices are in a local currency and not in US dollars. So if you're in one of those countries and you go, you'll see a price that's not in dollars, but you'll see the price that's in your currency. So these are the costs, and this is kind of the time frame that you are looking at to prepare for CMA. Let's look at the materials that we provide, what it is that we help you with. And again, we have a subscription model. You don't have to subscribe for a required number of times. You can subscribe for 1 month if you need it only for 1 month. And any subscription starts with a 3-day free trial. And so you put in your credit card information, and it starts. You have 3 days. If you cancel in that 3 days, you're not charged at all. This is your chance to look at the materials and make certain that the materials we have will match your study style, match the way it is that you learn best, and will support you in what it is that you're trying to do and passing the exam. We have a number of different study tools that are available, and we continue to kind of roll out more of these as we develop them. The main study tools that we have are the textbooks. We have an online textbook that allows you to have annotation, can make notes, keep notes. It's a wonderfully powerful tool to kind of keep all of your notes in one place. We have the MCQs, the essays, and the mock exams. We just recently added a 3rd mock exam for each part. So there's now 3 mock exams for part 1 and 3 mock exams for part 2. We have, as I mentioned earlier, our pass map system, which kind of builds this all and leads you step by step through it, all of the different study units. Each study unit has the textbook, the MCQs, and the essays for that topic, as well as the videos. If you subscribe, you get access to 2 sets of videos. There's a kind of a general set that I've done and a more detailed set. And so we have a lot of videos that you're able to watch. You're able to watch them as many times as you want to, as many times as you need to learn the material. And also we answer any questions that you have as you're studying. If there's something that doesn't make sense, whether it's an MCQ that you don't understand why one choice is wrong, if it's a conceptual question that you don't understand, we have a forum where you can ask your questions and also see all of the questions that other people have asked and the answers to those questions that other people have asked. And so any questions that you have while you're studying, we are able to, and we will answer those questions and make certain that whatever doubts you have, we are able to address those. Ultimately, our goal is for you to pass. That's what we do, is we help you pass your exam. And so if you have questions, we answer them. We want you to be comfortable and confident when you go into that exam. We've tried to work as much as we can to make the entry cost of starting to study for CMA as little as possible. Kind of, see if it's working for you, if it's going to do what it is that you want to do. And that's what the subscription model allows you to do, is to kind of rent the materials instead of purchase them when maybe you don't need them for a terribly long period of time. This is the end of the slideshows that we have and kind of the formal presentation that we wanted to do. Thank you very much for your time. We're going to stay and we're going to continue to answer questions that you have. You can continue to put the questions in the Q&A. What I'm going to do with Ronak is we're going to start going through. I know that we've already answered over 40 questions already. And what we're going to do is we're going to start going through the questions that haven't been answered yet. And some of them are a little bit broader scope, but we'll go ahead and answer those questions. We will stop this probably in about 20 or 30 minutes. We know we want to be respectful of everybody's time. But as I said, if there's a question that you wanted answered and we didn't get to it today, please send us an email. You can just send an email to support@hockinternational.com and we'll get those. We are going to send this a recording of this event, so you will be getting that probably tomorrow or the day after, but you'll get that. We'll be sending this to you so you can listen to it again. You can watch it again, whatever the case may be. So let's go ahead and start looking at some of the questions. There's a couple of questions about reading the textbook and what topics you need to study and what areas you need to focus on. So I'll kind of cover a number of those at once in terms of the focus. The CMA exam is a very large syllabus, but we are very fortunate that IMA has done a very good job of providing a very detailed syllabus. And so what that means is two things. It means that we know what is covered on the exam, and we also know what is not covered on the exam. And what that means is if it's in our textbook, it's possible to be on your exam. If it's in the videos, it's possible to be on the exam. Now, we know that not every topic in the textbook is going to be asked about on your exam. There aren't enough questions to do that. There's more than 100 topics or 100 questions that could be asked out of the textbook. And so part of what people ask us is, what's the most important section? What's the most important topic? What are the things that I need to focus on? And unfortunately, there is no answer to that. There is no shortcut. There is no key topics. Every topic in the book is in the database of questions. And so anytime you just decide, oh, I'm going to ignore those 10 pages, that doesn't seem like it's an important topic to me. You are taking a risk. This becomes a risk management question, because it's possible that that topic that you've decided to ignore is a multiple choice question, or it might be part of an essay question, in which case it's a much more significant part of your exam. And so when you start just ignoring pages, yes, you can do that a little bit. Okay. If there's one topic that's 4 pages long and you just can never understand it, that's fine. But if you've decided that half the book isn't something you need to worry about, that's a risk. You're going to fail. One of the ways you can judge what topics are more likely to be tested and less likely to be tested is in the test bank. Okay, there are topics that have many more questions about them than some of the details. And so as you go through the test bank, you'll learn what are the topics that tend to be more tested. And every topic, essentially, we can kind of look at it and say it's got a basic level, just basic things you need to know. Then there's more advanced, and then there's detailed. What will happen on your exam is you will get some detailed questions. Absolutely. Some of the questions on your exam will be detailed questions, but not all of them. And so as you go through and you're studying part 1 or part 2, and you look at these topics that are details, the elements of it that are the really detailed, if this specific situation happens, you will have some questions about some of those topics, but not all of them. Those basic level questions, okay, those basic things, depreciation, FIFO, LIFO, basic ratios. Every topic has basic questions, and you're probably going to have basic questions from most of the topics, most of the large topics. So one of the things I tell people is, even if there's a topic you don't like, okay, and we'll say that it's derivatives in part 2, section B. If you don't like derivatives, that's okay. If you understand everything except derivatives, you're going to pass part 2. You might not get 100%, but you're going to pass part 2. But even those topics that you don't like, you want to make certain that you understand what that topic is. What are we doing with derivatives? What is hedging? Okay, if you don't understand the details of puts and calls and the options and things like that, that's okay. I mean, not ideal, but make certain you know at least the foundational definitions and basic elements of a topic. Because there can be a question about a derivative that says, why do we use derivatives? And hedging is the answer. And so even if you don't know what a derivative is, or you don't know how to hedge with it, the fact that you know what derivatives are used for allows you to answer that basic level question. So you can't ignore large sections of the book. That's just not good risk management. But as you do the questions in the test bank, you begin to get a sense of what areas are more heavily tested, more frequently tested. And as I said, make certain you know that basic level, the basic foundation of each topic. You want to know what that is, because there may be some very basic questions about that. There were a couple of questions about changing profession and how to start at the beginning as an accountant. If you want to get into the accounting profession, if you want to change professions. One of the ways you can do that is CMA, but if you have minimal accounting or business background before you start CMA, it's very possible that you would be better off starting with FMAA, which covers some of the basic elements of CMA. I won't go into detail now about FMAA because we're talking here about CMA, but if you're transitioning into accounting or finance, or you're looking for that foundational level, FMAA is probably the place to start to get a little bit of that foundation, a little bit of that success before you go into CMA. And so if you have questions about FMAA, it's on our website. You can get information there, and you can send questions to us as well. Ronak, I'll give you the question talking about how you got your jobs and how it is that you got into those business roles.
Sure. Thank you, Brian. So as I had mentioned earlier, I was looking for a global qualification because I already had few years of work experience. And I felt that IMA holds that credibility after doing a lot of research, and because there were 2 papers as well. So when I was trying to reach out to the CFOs, they were very interested to give it a shot because the application and the qualification is globally known. So what I have studied in India is same as to what somebody has studied in the US or any part of the world. So they knew that there's uniformity in the knowledge and the testing that people do. And that is how they were able to take that chance upon me, because it was a very big deal. A lot of CFOs said that it's not possible, you cannot move to finance, but I was hell bent. And because of the backing that I had with the degree, it really helped me. And because I was trained in a similar fashion, wherein I was more like a plug and play in the organization, they did not have to train much on me because the tools were a little different, which they had to just introduce. But the application part, creating the reports, etc., making analysis, all that was very well taught in the qualification. So I did not have any challenge in making that switch. So that's what I tell people, that if I can do it coming from a business development background, it can change it changed my career, and it gave me that push and that speed that I was looking for. So it fulfilled my goal. So I'm a very strong supporter of the qualification because I'm a live example. And I would recommend all of you who are thinking about doing it, please go ahead and do it. You will see the changes that in your career post this particular qualification that you do. So that's how I sum it up, Brian.
Excellent. Trying to go through the questions and see if I can combine some of them.
Brian, maybe you
There's a
can share
question.
more about the scaling that there's some people have asked about.
Yeah.
Somebody has got 350 and yeah.
You wanted to answer that, or you wanted me to answer that?
I have already answered, but if you
Oh,
would like to.
nope, I don't need to. You need to be a member of IMA in order to be a CMA. And so after you pass the exam, you need to maintain your membership. The experience requirement is really any job in accounting or finance is going to meet that requirement. And you can meet the experience requirement after you pass the exams. So if you're at university now or you've just graduated, you can pass the exams. And then when you meet the 2-year experience, you will go ahead and be able to get your certificate at that point. There's some questions about the essays and how to prepare for the essays. We have some study tips for that. If you go in and you just go into YouTube or into Google and search Hock essay tips, you should get some things. But a couple of comments about the essays just in general. The essays are graded in the way that you start with 0 points, and you get points correct for everything you say that is correct. And so what this means is if you're not certain about something, write it down. It might be right. And if it's right, you get a point. If it's not right, you don't get a point. You get points for the things that you do correctly, and they don't penalize you if you make a mistake that carries through. For example, if there's a calculation where you have to do a few steps to get to the right answer, if you make a mistake in the first step, they will not make the whole answer wrong. It's possible that you get points for the second step and the third step if you did those steps correctly, assuming that what you did in the first step was correct. A common question we get has to do with spelling and grammar and things like that. As long as they are able to understand what you are trying to say, you will get points for it. So you don't need to worry about trying to remember the past perfect tense of some verb or something like that, or if your spelling is correct. Just make certain it's close enough that they know what it is that you were trying to say. And if you're able to communicate it, you're going to get points for it. This isn't a grammar test. It's not a spelling test, but you do need to be able to communicate and what it is. And so it needs to be close enough to do that, close enough to be for them to know what it is you were trying to say. One of the things about the essays also, and this was connected to a question somebody else asked, in our system, there's about 40 essays in part 1 and a similar number in part 2. Those are good study tools. One of the things that the essays do is they take a topic and they look at it in a larger picture than just a multiple choice question. And so make certain you look at all of those essays and do all of those essays as part of the study process. Those essays are a very good way of making certain that not only do you understand how this one specific MCQ is calculated, but how that MCQ fits into the larger topic. Because some of those essays require you to do a few steps in the process and not just one single step in the process, which is what an MCQ does. The essays are graded by people. And so it's a person who is grading it, and that's what you need to make certain is that the person who's grading it knows what your spelling was intended to be. It's not graded by AI. It's people that are going to be grading it. There's a lot of questions. Ronick did a great job talking about how the exam is scored. We have a page on our website that gives much more detail about that, and you can read it there. There have been some questions about how it's graded. So if you just search Hock CMA scoring in Google, you should get that page that will give you great detail about how all of that is being done. There's a question about, are the questions randomly chosen? You will get the questions distributed across the sections the way they're supposed to. Okay, if section A is 25%, 25% of your exam will be from section A. However, if your essay question includes coverage of section A, your MCQs may be less than 25% of the MCQs, may be about section A. Sometimes candidates come after the exam and they say, oh, section A wasn't the right, it was too much or too little. Don't worry about that. That's irrelevant. When you take into account the essay, you take into account the MCQs, you are getting the right number of questions for each section. It may not seem like it if you're not properly prepared for section A. It may seem like all of the questions are from section A because you weren't ready for them. Or if you are prepared for section A, you do each of those questions very easily and you may think there weren't many. Okay. In the stress of the exam, your memory of the questions you got and what sections they were from is not completely accurate. And so there's no point in you trying to count how many questions are in section A or section B. There's no benefit to that. There's no reason to go ahead and do that. Looking to see what other questions that we haven't addressed. In terms of using our study planner, we have a lot of videos within PassMap that go through how to use it and how to use the different tools of it. There's a lot of wonderful tools there. I know that a lot of candidates don't use the individual study units in PassMap, but you just like to go and take random test bank questions. There are no shortcuts to this. Everybody who takes the exam needs to know all of the content. And so really the best way to study this is systematically. Okay, maybe you don't want to start with section A, that's fine. You can start with section B. You can tell our system what section you want to study next. But we strongly recommend that you use PassMap with the study units because the study units give you the textbook and the videos and the MCQs for that study unit. Make certain you understand it all, and then you go to the next study unit. If you just start randomly choosing topics, it's likely you're going to miss something. It's not as structured in terms of how it is that you're going through that. And so we really encourage you to use PassMap to make notes in the online textbook. You can really do a great job making flashcards and study notes within the online textbook. And so we encourage you to do all of that. Let's see here. I think, are there any questions I'm missing that have been asked? Well, I think that's most of them. I'm sure we've missed some. There's a lot of questions that are still open here that I'm trying to go through. It's a good time for us to wrap up, and so I would like to, should have that stopped earlier. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very, very much for your attendance tonight. We hope we've answered your questions. We hope you're a little more comfortable and confident about CMA and what you need to do to pass it if you decide that this is what is going to help you with your career. As we said, if you have any other questions, you can send us an email at support@hockinternational.com. Thank you, Ronak, for your involvement and sharing your experiences. I know that that's a very valid and relevant experience for people to hear about. So thank you very much for that. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. And we look forward to helping you become a CMA in the future. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.